video is going to be on some of the symptoms that you might feel as you carry on down your Kundalini path. Just as a footnote, there is no upper limit to how pure you can get, how high level of purification you can get. If you think about enlightenment or being able to create an immortal body, you can also start to think about the Mahayana path, who have bodhisattva bhumi, far above enlightenment. And you can also think about some of the Hindu gods and goddesses who have representations of many arms, and many of those arms, all those arms represent emanation bodies that they're able to project all simultaneously. So the more arms you have, the more bodies you're able to project and create karma and do good things with all those bodies. So one thing that we tend to feel is our desires will start to lessen. I mean desires for pleasures, or you just don't need to derive pleasure from doing specific things anymore, because the kind of general well-being will just start to take over anyway without having to do anything. So desires for things like sex and food or some sort of stimulation tends to go down. And as well, as I mentioned before, the body transforms. So the chi, when your real chi energy starts to refine and becomes to a certain level of raffination, it will permeate your skin, and your skin will soften, and your muscles and tendons will soften too. Like before, I used to have fairly contracted muscular type arms, and it kind of just softened up. Arguably, it's a sign of getting older as well, but I think it's generally known that your body will just soften. So we think sometimes of some guys being really strong and healthy because they have permanently contracted muscles and it just looks big, but actually it's just sort of a mirage. It just looks big, and it's not healthy to have permanently contracted muscles, even though it looks impressive. Another thing is that the cycles will slow down and they won't change as much. And so you will just notice, like at the beginning of a Kundalini awakening, it seems that there's a lot of different cycles, and you're really caught up in the changing cycles of it, but it tends to peter out after a while. And you might notice your head shape start to change, like your skull. That's one thing I've noticed quite a bit about mine, that I seem to feel it thread by thread, fiber by fiber, as I sink down. And this is very deliberate on my part. I sink down into a very deep state of meditation where energies can become so powerful that these sort of things can happen. Like I feel an electrical impulse, and then it will just somehow create a tiny explosion, and it'll just like rip something in my head, and I'll feel and hear it. So other people, I don't know how they experience it, but basically, eventually, the top, like the part of your head that was soft when you were a baby, fontanelles, will re-soften, and that has to do with energetic linkages, I suppose, as you have like more fully formed chakra areas linking better to the oneness of the universe. And then you have this softening of the head skull part. Okay, and then you might notice some cities, like superpowers, like a very good memory after a while. You might notice a deepening of the intellect. You might notice your third eye beginning to open in certain ways. Now, people think that the third eye is either opened or closed, and that's not true. There's just levels or aspects of third eye opening. So it's said that there's 99 levels of third eye awakening. Okay, so but it can be visual, but you can also have some sort of sense data which is out of the ordinary. And people who have third eye, of course, we think of people who can see auras and things like that. But the thing is that these auras also contain more refined energy bodies. So within an aura, okay, you might just see an aura, but then you might see colors. But then even beyond just seeing the colors, there are sort of formations of like the bodies themselves, and how do they appear, you know, like tentacles or sea anemones and things like that, you know. So yeah, that's what it's really like. It's funny that reality is much more weird than science fiction. So you might start to notice some soma drops. Like soma is essentially what they call the fountain of youth, or elixir of immortality. So it's basically when your pituitary gland and your pineal gland form, the areas around it, like the energetic areas around it, form a kind of link, and then it will create a kind of fluid that will just drip down from your upper palate, and that fluid is known to cause like the chemical reaction in your body that creates this kind of fountain of youthfulness, something like that. It's a sign of, anyway, it's a good sign. I had that right at the beginning of, before, when I was completely clueless about awakenings. It just happened to me. I'm not sure, see, this is why awakenings are really kind of sometimes hard to figure out, because sometimes you get a symptom and it's just like out of the blue, and it doesn't seem to fit the pattern. But what happened to me was, after my tongue did a kriya of Hichara mudra, then the upper palate just started to crack, like, and it was freaky at the same time, interesting. And then this water came down, and it was more like people report that it's supposed to be something like a pure water, sweet fluid, but what I guess I hadn't attained such a high level of sweet fluid. It was more like a Vichy, salty sort of water. Like, Vichy is a brand of water in France. It's got a particular taste. So you might start to feel some states of connectedness as well. And say, for example, people will just experience states, and they won't last a long time, but they'll go through the experience, and usually it's a very, very marking experience. If you feel some, you know, you might see the lights and a kind of connectedness between you and everything else in the nature, and you feel all at one with them, and you feel like you have all the information, and something like that, and then it will go away. And if you're a Buddhist or you're working with deep meditations, then you'll have another realm of phenomena, in a sense, that because you're working with the mind and deep states, so you will find yourself in some very altered states. For example, you know, you'll find yourself just sort of bodiless and flying in some black velvety sort of thing, or you might see the blue light, or you might see, you know, reportedly, like what the Tibetans call the clean clear.